Much obviously has been said about this year 2020 thus far, and I'm sure much more will be written about it in the future. This year likely will go down in history as the year of the coronavirus pandemic, or maybe the year that masses were canceled throughout the world for a time, or maybe the year of deep political divisions, or the year of addressing racial injustices, or the year of violent protests and destruction. The list goes on and on. Personally, I'm hoping that this year will go down as the year the Lightning won the second Stanley Cup. Okay, that's what I'm hoping for. But we got to step it up there. We lost last night, but it's a series, okay? So actually, the more I have thought about it, the more I'm convinced that this year probably should be known as the year we waited. Think about this. We waited for the curve to flatten. We waited for the lockdown to end. We're still waiting for a vaccine. We waited for restaurants to reopen. We waited for sports to start up again. We waited for our schools to reopen. We waited for it to be safe to travel again. We're waiting for this presidential election to be over. And of course, we've all of us have waited at least 6 feet behind the person in front of us in line somewhere. And of course, we're still waiting for things to get back to normal. This weekend and next weekend, we're finally having First Holy Communion here at Christ the King. And unlike previous years when we had several big masses of about 60 children each, this year we're doing rather small groupings of less than 24 over the course of 7 different masses. At this mass in particular, I want to welcome in a special way half of our now third graders who go to Christ the King School and their parents and siblings and any grandparents, as well as anyone who may be watching us via live stream. At the next Mass is the other half of the Christ the King School third graders. Boys and girls, you have had to wait an extra 4 months to receive your first Holy Communion. I know that waiting is hard, but this very special day has finally arrived in your life. But waiting isn't always a bad thing. As you know, when you find out that there's going to be a new member of your family, you have to wait a good, 9 months or so until you can see that child and hold that child. Waiting sometimes makes us appreciate things much more. After all, we have to wait for Christmas. When it finally gets here, it's awesome. And sometimes we have to wait to see a loved one because they are away on a trip or are deployed overseas in service to our country, or because they are maybe away at school and college, or because of various travel restrictions and people can't travel right now like they used to. But then when we finally get to see them, it makes it all the more beautiful. I hope this wait has made your first communion, boys and girls, all the more special. But this First Communion Mass isn't just about these 22 boys and girls sitting in the front pews here, looking all nice and spiffy, beautiful and handsome. It's about all of us as well. Well, these children will make their first Holy Communion today. Most of us here today will also receive Holy Communion as well. Perhaps because of the lockdown, or maybe just a fear of being around other people, it has been a while since you have been to church. Yes, you've been waiting to go to Mass again. But the truth is, you haven't been the only one waiting. Jesus, too, has been waiting. He's been waiting right here for you. The word communion literally means to be one with. Holy Communion is not just a nice ceremony, because it literally means to be one with Jesus. This is at the heart of these sacred mysteries. Jesus Christ himself invites us to receive him, to eat his body and drink his blood. I know that when we restarted public masses again back in May, numerous people coming to church told me how much they missed receiving Holy Communion. But this is not just a one-way street. Yes, your priest missed you, but more importantly, Jesus himself missed giving himself to you in the Holy Eucharist. In the gospel today, Jesus reminds us of the generosity of God. Those first in line or those last in line do not receive any more or any less. In the Eucharist, we receive Jesus, whole and entire, body, blood, soul, and divinity. How blessed are we indeed to be invited to share in the banquet of the Lamb. When public masses were suspended in March, at the beginning of the lockdown, I shared the story of my own relatives in Poland, who during the Second World War had the church in their town closed and their priest sent away to a concentration camp, which he never returned. They went nearly 5 years without Mass, 5 years without being able to receive Holy Communion. Fortunately, we did not have to wait that long. Hopefully, like them, being without the Eucharist for a time has made us long for Jesus in the Eucharist all the more. I know that our first communicants are very excited today to receive Holy Communion at last. I hope and pray that we share that same excitement, not just for them, but for yourself as well, when you come forward, whether you received Holy Communion last Sunday or whether it's been some time since you've eaten the very bread of life. Receiving Jesus in the Eucharist is not like eating any other food. It is the food of eternal life. But what does that mean? When we eat normal food, whether it be a piece of cake, a nice steak, a salad, or even Chick-fil-A, our bodies change that food that we eat. Our bodies transform that food and it becomes part of us. It's how we grow. Your parents, of course, are probably much more acutely aware of the fact that what we eat becomes part of our bodies. That food does indeed become part of us. But when we receive Jesus in the Eucharist, instead of Jesus becoming part of us, we become part of him. In fact, in Holy Communion, we do not change him. Instead, he changes us. And just like any meal, just having one healthy meal doesn't suddenly change our health. It is successive healthy meals that is good for us physically. So receiving Holy Communion once isn't enough. Receive again and again so that we can be spiritually healthy. Yes, Jesus wants to change us. Jesus, in fact, wants to transform us. He wants to replace our fears with faith. He wants to change our sadness to joy. He wants to turn our anxiety into hope. He wants to replace our unkindness with charity. He wants to transform our grudges into forgiveness. He wants to change our anxiety into peace. Yes, Jesus wants to do all these things and more in our lives, if only we let him. That is why we receive Holy Communion not just once, but over and over and over again. That is why this day, this beautiful day, is not an end, but rather a new beginning. Jesus makes himself last so that we can be first. As a child, when I was an altar server, I remember a plaque that my pastor had in the sacristy where the where he and the altar servers got ready for Mass. And it said, "Priest of Jesus Christ, celebrate this Holy Mass as if it were your first Mass, your last Mass, your only Mass." Those words have stuck with me to this day. Maybe we should adjust them slightly and pray not just this Sunday, but every Sunday. Receive Jesus Christ today as if it were your first Holy Communion, your last Holy Communion, your only Holy Communion.